Good afternoon, John.
How are you?
I am great. You?
I'm good.
I am really excited about today's topic. I've been thinking a ton about it. I've been reflecting on all of the things that I'm not when I think of this leadership mindset, but I'm just really excited.
I am too. And isn't it funny that it's easy when you're teaching something to act as though you know it and you're there and then you're not working on it. And I
Yeah.
just love that you made that little hint here, because the stuff we're going to talk about today is still a work in progress in my life.
Yeah, mine as well. Often, John, when we talk about leadership, we share this broad concept. We share this concept that we believe that leaders do a number of things, but three really important ones. They see a destination, they inspire people to follow, and often where it crosses over with management is this ability to get things done. And when I think about what is a leadership mindset, when I encounter leaders that I can look at them and say, this person has a leadership mindset, what always occurs to me is that piece about inspiration. And as we think about this leadership mindset, for me, it falls clearly in this thought of that part of those three key things is inspiration. How about for you?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly need to know where we're going. And that's when we talk about a leadership mindset, we're talking about how do you shift so that you are actually putting your eyes on whatever it is that you're headed for with this sense of leadership. And we certainly need to know where we're going. But the key is how do I inspire people to follow? I mean, that's our legacy, right? Is going to be, did some actually follow us?
Yeah. And as I was thinking about today's conversation, it occurred to me that this leadership mindset, first, I think it's something we can all develop. I think we can all grow, but I also think it's deliberate.
Hmm.
I think for me, certainly, it has required me to do some work. And the work that I have felt, the work I have seen in others has been kind of internal work and external work. I'm stealing a little bit from Dr. Covey, and as he tells his story about the 7 habits, he shares that 6 of them were internal and external victories. There were 3 that were internal victories, and there were 3 that were external victories. And I sure think a leadership mindset follows the same kind of structure. I think there are internal victories that create, foster, deepen, strengthen a leadership mindset. And I think there are parts that are external victories. And if you would agree, I think today we should focus on the internal victories.
So let me make sure I understand. So when you
Yeah,
talk about internal, you're talking about what goes on inside of ourselves, our thoughts about ourselves, our feelings about ourselves, how we prepare ourselves inside for this role of leadership. Is
yeah,
that right?
absolutely. Could I maybe share of an example, and it
Okay.
might be one. And while this one certainly has a feeling that it's internal, how we prepare ourselves, it may also show up a little externally. And here's what I mean: executive presence.
Hmm.
And I know we use that word all the time, and it has become a buzzword. So here's what I mean when I say executive presence. So part of executive presence for me is simply the language that I use. Do I use profanity as a comma? Do I, executive presence is, can I control my own emotions? Can I regulate those emotions? Did I iron the shirt that I'm wearing today? I hate ironing. It was the worst thing about my Army experience, but I didn't have to. It could have been all wrinkled. It could be hanging this way, then my hair combed, my glasses sitting well. Did I shave? How I carry myself, how I show up with others, how others may even perceive me. So for me, an internal victory is, am I aware of the executive presence that I bring? have identified areas of my executive presence that I need to work on, I need to grow, I need to develop. So an internal victory for me would be executive presence.
So the internal is inside. So briefly tell us, if we're going to focus on that today, we're going to talk about that briefly, and we're going to save the external till next time. What's the external? Just real briefly, what is that?
Yeah, I think the external victories are those things that we might do to also foster the leadership mindset. An example might be leaders in a leadership mindset build, cultivate, tend a team.
Mm.
So my mindset is not how many trucks I have on the road today, though that's important. Not whether or not today's schedule is filled, well, that's important. My leadership mindset might be externally, am I growing, building, strengthening, developing a team who indeed might have some of those areas of responsibility. The things I will do, the things I will be seen doing, I think are those external victories. What do
Okay,
you
good.
think? What does internal, external mean to you?
I think you've got it. So for me, the internal is really what's going on inside of myself and how I'm preparing myself internally. And we'll talk a little bit more about the depth of that, because that goes really deep. And I think you and I are, as in our own journey and are working with executives around the United States and leaders around the United States, what we're discovering is that often the internal is pretty narrow. And the external is for me, the external is then what kinds of tools and strategies do I implement to go out there and be influential and get followers. And that certainly will be building teams, that will certainly be building relationships, that's certainly cultivating that idea of how I interact with other people in such a way that they want to follow where I'm going.
Yeah, tools, strategies. I think those are outstanding characterizations of that external victory. And I just wanted to validate something that you just mentioned, which is as we have this honor to work with leaders and organizations across the nation, both you and I regularly get to coach, mentor leaders. As we have leaders coach and mentor us, too seldom are we seeing leaders doing the internal victories.
I agree. And it it shows up from the external, right? So for example, one of the things that we often see is that there needs to be work that the leader needs to do as it relates to finding and keeping the right people. And when it comes time to maybe making a significant change in the leadership team, or speaking truth to an expectation that's not being met, we find that leaders, because they haven't done the internal work, are reluctant to do those difficult things. So the internal can be fairly thin when things are going smoothly. But when things get very difficult, that's when the depth of your internal work really begins to show up.
And I wonder, and I want to use that word very deliberately, I wonder if one of the reasons why you and I are both seeing this right now is because of what you just mentioned. And certainly EMS has been and continues to be a difficult business, a difficult thing to lead.
Yes.
For many reasons. But I think, and I'm going to steal from you for a moment, John, COVID has shined the light on the leader. And when the light's a little dim, if I lowered my lights right now, you might miss whether my shirt is ironed or not. What I mean is, when the light of COVID wasn't shining on the leader, that thinness maybe was okay. when finding and keeping people, which has always been a challenge within EMS, was not the kind of challenge that we see today, it was easier. When reimbursement was a little bit better, and it's always been a challenge with our reimbursement. When community expectations were different, the list goes on and on and on. But this spotlight that COVID has held up to all kinds of things, it's held up to leaders and leadership. And I think what it's done is it showed us that some leaders maybe don't think that internal work has to be done. I know how to expertly manage. I can build a budget. I have an MBA. I have any number of different kinds of degrees. I can deploy resources. I can build a chart. I can build a graph. I can build all these kinds of things. But that's not what's in front of us today.
Right. And as a follower, I'm going to be asking you questions. I'm going to be saying we are short-staffed. And consistently on most of our days, we don't have enough trucks on the road, and we're having great problems with really meeting community expectations. What are we going to do about that? And I'm the follower asking you, what are we going to do about that? What are we going to do about the fact that we don't have enough resources? What are we going to do about the fact that we don't have enough money to create a value proposition to compete ferociously in the employment market today? So when I'm starting as a follower, I want my leader, I need my leader to actually stand up at this time. And that's where the spotlight's going to be on you.
Yeah. We don't believe that you will manage yourself out of the challenges that face our nation's leaders today. And we don't have to look within EMS. We can look at any number of businesses, any number of leaders. We don't believe you'll expertly be able to manage your way out of this. We do believe that those that get really clear about a leadership mindset will have a competitive edge. And we believe that competitive edge will be finding and keeping more of the right people.
And part of that's going to be, and when things are tough, part of what the leader needs to do is build passion and enthusiasm, trust and possibility in their people, even when they don't have the clear answers. So it's the way I'm seeing it, Aarron, is leaders needing to say, look, the way forward is not clear. The way forward is fraught with many barriers and obstacles. And yet where we're headed and the journey of getting there will be worth it if we all work together. So it's this ability to internally have something that people can turn to.
If I was going to overhaul my car's engine, I would probably need a toolbox full of tools. Some might be very general, sockets, screwdrivers, pliers, but I may need some very specific tools as well. The leadership mindset is the tools I need to lead. I would never overhaul that engine without a toolbox. I wouldn't do it if I just had a Phillips and a flat and one big hammer. We don't want you to lead EMS organizations or any organizations without a leader mindset, without the tools that you need.
So let's talk about this internal. What are some of these things that internally I need to be thinking about, paying attention to, tending to?
So we mentioned executive presence. Another one that I would mention that might connect to the conversation we were just having is confidence. And that's such a catch-22. So imagine I'm the brand new leader. I was promoted because I did the job really well. Maybe I'm the frontline supervisor and I was selected because as a paramedic EMT, I did that job really well. And now I find out that these two guys are telling me that I have to have this leadership mindset, and all I've done for the past 20 years is run calls really, really well. I'm scared. I'm afraid. I want to be liked. I don't think people will follow me. Maybe I'm worried about whether they respect me or not. So confidence sometimes requires, and I'll steal this from one of the individuals that we are fortunate to work with, Ben Wasman. Ben says that as you begin in leadership, it's like acting, it's stagecraft. I might have to begin with a confidence that I don't feel inside. I might have to exude this assurity that isn't here. I don't know if that's the right decision. Wow, I wondered if I screwed up. Is that going to come back to bite me in the butt? And, all of those things. Because and John, you have a wonderful graphic that you often use that talks about, first thing I have to do is I'm going to have to step out, even though I don't have the confidence. And I'm going to have to try something because I'm worried that I'm going to fail. But when I do this, and it does go okay, then a little bit confidence builds, and then I will step out a little bit more. So I think one of the leadership mindsets is I have to have confidence. If I bring victimhood and martyrdom and defeatism with me everywhere I go, no one will want to follow me.
Yeah, it's what you just described is is the fact that we don't think our way to more confidence, we act our way to more confidence, and we often won't do the difficult thing because of that lack of internal confidence in it. But the courage part of leadership is that you just have to step in the ring. You just have to step in it. And the thing I want to say is that when you don't know for sure what to do and you don't know what the outcome is going to be, what you have to wind up trusting in, your confidence is going to rest in who you are and what's in your heart. And what I mean by that is I can lead people to do a difficult thing, even though I don't know how we're going to do it all. And I can do that when I say that my heart is in the right place and my intention is in the right place. And I am listening and caring about the people that I'm leading, and I will take care of them. But here's the part about that confidence. And that gets to, I think, one thing you would mention too, is that in order for this confidence to be there, you have to do your personal work.
Absolutely. And I would connect both of these together with, if you're, for those that are listening, to say, okay, I agree, but what do I do? Find a mentor, find a trusted colleague, someone that you can go to ask these questions, to gain knowledge and experience the ways that many of us did with a grandfather or a grandmother, an uncle, a trusted friend. John and I both have mentors that we regularly work with, and they're extraordinarily helpful in also making sure that we do our own work. The difference between a mediocre leader and a great leader, or a leader without a leadership mindset, or a leader with a leadership mindset, is they're willing to do their own work. Brene Brown talks about this wonderful concept of the difference between nice and kind. So a mentor, a trusted colleague, that person who loves and cares for us, is the person who's not going to be nice. Nice is, oh, everything's fine, don't worry about it. Yeah, maybe get that report done a little faster.
I hear what I want to hear, right?
Yeah,
The
or
nice is,
I tell you what you want to hear.
yeah. And the kind
is telling me what I need to hear.
So I want to just pause there and emphasize what you're talking about, because one of the things we've talked on here about important conversations, and people that know our sort of 10 conversations will know that we talk about the two most important conversations are a connecting conversation and an expectation conversation. But the third most important conversation is what we call an encouragement conversation. So Aarron mentioned mentors, and I want Aarron, all of our people to recognize that one of the gifts of having a mentor is that a mentor often sees possibilities in you that you won't see in yourself. And that the mentor, we're relating this to confidence, because if we're going to lead in tough times, we need to have confidence. So if our own confidence is a bit shaky, one of the things a mentor does is begin to see the stuff in us that we may not see in ourselves. And the work, and I know you do this with your coaching clients, often that work with the coaching is to help that individual see that they are okay, that they do have what it takes, and that all they need to do is show up displaying that. So this back to the encouragement for all of us is that leaders, especially when we get toward the top and we get to executive, we don't think that we need encouragement. And we often hear this saying, it's alone at the top, and it's lonely up there. And that's because we think that we should have it all, and we think that we should have arrived, and we should have all of our crap together inside, right? But we don't. And that's where having someone who's working with us, who sees into us and can encourage us and see what we can't see, is so important.
Also suggests that encouragement is necessary in that coaching, mentoring kind of relationship. But also one of the parts, and this is the kind piece, is our ego. I might not think I have any work to do. I've arrived. I have the right shininess on my collar. I have the right titles behind my name. I have the right abbreviations behind it. A wonderful book that I'm reading is Ego is My Enemy. I'm looking down to make sure I get the author correctly. It's Ryan Holiday. And
I'm curious, ego is my enemy. In what way? Talk about that.
Yeah. So what the author is suggesting is that our ego might be the thing that keeps us from being humble. Our ego might be the thing that keeps us from asking for help. Our ego might be the thing that makes these things stop working. But I might not have a mentor because maybe my ego can't take somebody telling me where I'm screwing up. Or I might not have a mentor because my ego is one that says I can't ask for help.
Yeah. So this gets to that whole part that when we lead, to lead is to step out in front. And this is the part that we always say. So you're not leading if you're not stepping out in front, and you're stepping out and saying, here's the way. Hey, everybody, follow me. So when we do that, that we often say paints a target on our back, right? Mm-hmm. And therefore we need that confidence and all of that. But one of the things that we've observed is that when you step out in front, especially in difficult times, and especially when things need to change, be different, be improved, one of the things that happens is as you step out in front and the arrows start to fly, people go, are you sure? Should we go that way? What happens is that our baggage gets magnified. Mm-hmm. And we all come to leadership with baggage. And when we talk about doing your personal work, what we're talking about is the fact that all of us have peculiar challenges inside. For some of us, it may be confidence issues. For some of us, it may be a wound from our childhood. For some of us, it may be a desire to control everything. For some of us, it may be wanting to be liked, but we all come with baggage. And there's not a leader who doesn't have some baggage. Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting. I was working with a leader recently, and one of the needs for this leader, what to do was to fire somebody important who had been in the organization a long time, but was clearly not a fit for the organization. What I learned as the leader really struggled with that was that the leader had in her background had a very difficult time when she was fired early in her career. And this this stuck with her. It was part of her baggage.
Yes.
And so working with this personal stuff is essential to being able to have that confidence on the outside.
And let me give you another reason why this is important. Not doing this work gives people the ability and a reason to dismiss you. Maybe you're a person who has the emotional response. Was working with a leader here recently that one of the things that the leaders team talks about is regularly some pinch, some prod, something triggers the leader, and then he calls the people and chews them out.
Mm.
And so as I'm talking with both groups, you could imagine the followers say, yeah, that's just Bob. Bob just does that. Now, in that message might have been something really important, but it's completely blown off. It's completely lost because Bob's not doing the own work. So the doing your own work can be do some assessments, whether it's strength finders, Myers and Briggs, whether it's the emotional intelligence index, DISC, any number of those different ones that just begins to say, know myself. Connect with a trusted mentor, colleague who will give you that feedback, the kind information, not necessarily the nice information. Begin to do your work about who you are. That's the good to great work. This isn't I'm horrible, I'm terrible, I'm crappy, I'm broken, no one will love me. This is I'm good. But to develop and hone my leadership mindset, I just have to recognize who I am. I know I like to talk. I know that's a shock, right, John? I know I have a strong preference to structure. It's who I am. Doesn't mean I just go, it's who I am, nothing I can do about it. It does mean I need to do the work. And often I need others to help me with the work. Maybe I need occasionally the rolled up newspaper to hit me on the nose that says, hey, looks like you want a little structure here, huh?
Well, and here's the good part about that. The good part about it is, why lead? If leadership doesn't produce, if leading the organization doesn't produce a deep sense of satisfaction, why do it? And here's the deal. Leadership is going to kick you in the butt. It's going to bring forth what's inside of you. And Jerry Colonna, one of the leading executive coaches in the United States, he says that we don't want to turn our organizations into therapy sessions or our team meetings into therapy sessions. But he said what we do have to do is acknowledge that the stuff's there. If I have a problem with anger and I'm showing up in meetings and then somebody pushes my button and the anger spews forth, or my lack of confidence comes out, it's there, it's present, right? So what we need to do is recognize that it's all there and stop tiptoeing around it. And that's what Brene Brown is talking about the vulnerability, that emotional risk, that emotional risking that says, you know what, I'm not good at this. I need to call up somebody and get some help with this, so that when I do go back into the fire and I lead this group of hundreds of people forward, I can do that from a place of internal peace and internal confidence.
Yeah, agree. And that really connects to one of these other internal victories that I see exist in this leadership mindset is my growth and development. In this role of leader, whatever it is, I've not arrived. I've started a journey, and let's oversimplify that journey. Maybe when I start that leadership journey, I'm competent. I can, for the sake of discussion, meet minimum expectations. And maybe as I grow and develop, I come to a spot where I'm now proficient. I can do it pretty well. I can anticipate. But maybe as that journey continues, I arrived to a place of mastery. And maybe that's the wrong word because I don't think either of us believe we've ever mastered leadership. But what I mean by that is I'm in a place where I could teach, mentor, and coach others. But for me, that journey is different based on the subject. If today, and I hope it wouldn't happen, if today we had a line of duty death in my organization, I don't even know if I'd be competent. But if today we needed to launch a new business, we had an area to grow and expand it, I think I have some mastery of that. I've done it a couple times. I've had some bumps and starts and stops and fits and all of that kind of thing. But we have to grow and develop. I've mentioned a couple books. I'm sorry to say, leaders, reading is a way that we grow and develop. We won't find everything on a podcast. We won't find everything on a YouTube. Reading is something we do. Going to courses and classes is something we do. I'll be on my soap chair for just a moment. I'm surprised at how few people, dare I say, executives come to our leadership academy. John, you and I teach them almost every month. And I guarantee you, I will come back from every one of those refreshed, recharged, humbled, remembering, well, I just taught that, but I just didn't do that. And learning.
Yeah.
I steal shamelessly from the things I learn from all of these incredible people who come and spend time with us in our different Leadership Academy offerings. But growth and development is an internal victory for a leader mindset.
And I think just a little suggestion is we do this often in our retreats, is that we ask leaders to talk about what area of growth they're working on now. So the suggestion is get clear about what you're working on now. What area are you trying to develop? Yesterday, or day before yesterday, I was talking to a leader of a comm center, and she was excited about moving something forward in her organization. And what we realized is that her influence needed to expand beyond just the internal workings of her organization, and had to influence people out there. And it was very quickly that she recognized and identified, that's an area I need to work on. I need to work on how do I begin to start influencing beyond what is in my sort of direct downstream span of control. How do I become influential out and beyond? And whatever that may be for you, get clear about what it is, because then you will start looking. If I know that I'm working on confidence, or if I know that I'm really working on trying to create more space and time in my day so that I have time to listen to people, get clear about what it is that you're working on in your leadership journey. When you get clear, there's this old saying that says, when the student's ready, the teacher comes, right? But how that works practically is, when you get clear about what you're working on, what I'm going to work on this year is I'm going to work on becoming a better listener. If that's your area of work, what will happen is you'll start noticing where there are materials. You'll start noticing when you hear somebody talking about it. You'll start noticing, oh, that's it. You'll start seeing it in movies that you watch. You'll start seeing it in all kinds of things. The learning will come, but you first have to open yourself to it. And so the suggestion again is, get clear about what it is that you're working on now. There's much that we could work on, but my encouragement is focus on something. Focus on something that you're working on in your leadership journey.
And I might add to that, give yourself a little credit, which is focus on that thing and getting 10% better.
Yeah.
Too often we expect to go from, I have this problem, to it's fixed. And that's not the stuff we're working on. It's not, can I spell better? Do I know the way to use punctuation? we're talking about things. One of the questions that came in was fear. And that's not something we're going to snap our fingers and fix. But if fear is something I have to work on, the point is I have to work on it. Why do I feel fear? What's that coming from? Why is this? What do I do about this? Is it leading me? Am I leading it? Fear is not somebody else's problem. Yes, somebody may be creating an environment that makes me fearful. I may have had experiences in the past that have validated this, but fear is me. If others make me fearful, then I'm giving away my agency. I'm letting others control me. But if I want to work on fear, let's just try to get 10% better.
And I just want to say about fear is that it's likely the most common emotion, leadership emotion there is. And if you're feeling fear, welcome, brother or sister, because that is very, very common. And the work around that, is to notice inside of us what is going on, what's working inside of us. And that's where a coach, a mentor can really help, because our own blind spots, especially when it's around fear, are very protective and wanting to keep it. So the encouragement is, welcome to the club. That's where much leadership falls down, and a wonderful area to work in.
And fear is so sticky, way stickier than success, joy, any of that. I mean, we have a bad experience somewhere. We tell 6, 7 people, data says. We have a good experience somewhere. We might tell 1. So that fear is going to stick in here that says, look, that bad thing happened, fear. And then we run into confirmation bias. So we look for everything that says, see, should have been afraid of that. See, should have been afraid of that too. And not looking at the big pile of other things that said, I tried that. Went okay. Our brains are built for fear because it's what kept us alive and continues to keep us alive. And then we look for things that validate. See? Again, a place where a trusted mentor, colleague, friend could come in place and say, and a real quick, short little story, trusted friend, colleague, mentor of mine, who happened to also be a board member, one day sends me an email and says, hey, Aarron, when you have a few minutes, let's chat. Fear. What's wrong? What did I do? I must be in trouble. Oh my goodness. I'm going to get fired. I must have sent him half dozen text messages, a few emails, called his cell phone. Let's meet now. What's going on? Come on. I clear my scoop. So he figures it out. He says, yep, I'm on my way. Sits down right back here and says, before we start, first, just want to tell you, I just wanted to check in. You and I haven't chatted in a while. I just want to know how you're doing. How's it going? He says, but you have a problem. I said, oh. He said, your problem is, why'd you freak out? You know me. We've known each other for 20 years. You know, if I had a problem with you, you would know it. I got to fix that. That's mine to do. He didn't cause it. I caused it. Why is that? Why did I do that? Where did that come from? That's the work I need to do.
So how have you been doing that work?
Well, so again, here's my analytical answer to a highly emotional question. I spent a bunch of time just asking, why did I feel afraid? Next, I asked myself, did I know I felt afraid? Could I recognize that? So when I talk about fear, I talk about these 4 ways of leading fear. First, from the unknown to the known. Why was it that I felt afraid? But even the first step is to just say, right now I'm feeling fear. Unknown to the known. I want to call it out. Then the unnamed to the named. What is it right now that's causing me fear? Is there something that I'm worried he knows about? Have I made a mistake some way? Is there some challenge we currently have? So the unknown to the known, the unnamed to the named, the unverified to the verified, and then the inaction to the action. So I spent some time, and I continue to spend time when I feel fear, anxious, hesitation, worry, palms sweaty, tachycardia, VFib. I literally ask myself, what am I afraid of right now?
So
And then I just try to unpack it.
So let me
I'm afraid when I get on the plane, there won't be a space for my bag. Okay. I feel that right now.
So a little, I don't know if I've shared this with you, but a little acronym that we use for that is RAIN. RAIN. So R is recognize it. So recognize the fear. Just recognize it. Just know that it's there. Then A is allow it. Allow it. Just say, okay, I'm afraid, and then allow yourself to be afraid. Because if you will allow yourself to feel the feeling, then you can get to I. Right. So I is investigate. So I recognize R, I allow, and then I investigate. And that's what you're talking about. Just investigate. What's behind this? Oh, this is similar to what I've experienced before. This goes back to that time when I got fired. This is all of that. So the investigate. And then the N is notes. Take notes. Take notes so you can use that in the future. So recognize it, allow it. Investigate is where you take some time. Just investigate it. And that's what I have done with my mentor, Aarron, is when I recognize an emotional charge and I allow it, and then I investigate it, then I can take that to my mentor and say, help. Okay. This happened the other day. I got really afraid. Here's what I'm thinking about it. Let me bounce it off of you and then take notes. Oh, this is old stuff coming up. This is fear that isn't really attached to what's happening now. It's that board member that was really bad in the past, right? That I'm projecting into everyone there is now.
John's a little on the nose. He knows me a little too well. And Ben Wasman often, when he leads a conversation about fear, begins with a definition that he often uses, which is fear is the body's natural response to perceived threat.
Yeah.
And of course, because it's about survival, we make the perceived threat much greater than what it really is. And John, like usual, our time is running short. I wanted to suggest after growth and development that another internal victory is self-management, self-regulation, and self-editing. I have to control myself, like in that fear story I just said. I have to manage myself. It's my responsibility to manage my time. It's my responsibility to recognize when the facial flush is happening and the JVD is sticking out and that one vein shows up in the front of my forehead. And for me, especially self-editing. So let's imagine I'm going to make a beautiful steak. Salt and pepper, throw it on the grill. But now I make a compound butter and I make a pan sauce and I make a this and I make a that. And can I taste the steak anymore? Self-editing is this ability to say, I might know the answer. I might want to contribute to that conversation, but maybe I don't always have to. Maybe self-editing is I need others to first speak. I need others to try to answer that question. Today, we have some issue with our gas cards and the primary ones are getting lost. And so they're pulling out some backup ones. And I desperately want to go out there and jump in. I don't need to. They got it. And even if this is the wrong step, okay, we'll learn. No one will die. It will be okay if it takes us a couple steps to get there. okay, self-editing is, I don't need to be part of that conversation today. I want to.
So it's interesting because this self-management, self-regulating, and self-editing is kind of at the core of mindfulness,
Mm,
right? And that word gets a lot of bad press, and it's sort of seen as sort of new age stuff. Mindfulness is simply paying close attention to what's going on in your mind. It's paying attention to how the thoughts unfold and getting good at paying attention to what's going on in your mind before it finds external expression. And so if I'm going to self-manage, self-regulate, and self-edit, what I need to do is pay attention to what's going on in the mind. And this is what I would encourage everybody, just another little hint here, is what I would encourage everybody is to begin to start thinking about mindfulness as this way in which the way in which we begin to find some mastery over our thoughts. I may not be able to stop the thought from coming, but I certainly can control whether I invite that thought to stay for dinner.
yeah.
And it is important to be I think the mature leader is a mindful leader. And so at the core of this kind of self-regulation is this idea of mindfulness.
Yeah, the kind of more simplistic version might be, do I have a good brain mouse filter? And
Well,
and maybe lastly, John, when we chatted a little bit, you mentioned an internal victory for a leadership mindset was cultivating a brand. Am I like Target? What do you mean cultivate a brand?
yeah, so I think this is really, really important. So if we think of brand this way, so all of us have a brand. So here's how it shows up. If I'm not in the room and a group of people are talking about me and they say, oh, maybe John could do this, or I wonder if John would be good for this. What I want to know is what I'm interested in is what others talk about. And do they see me as trustworthy? All of that. So that could be external, right? And I don't have a lot of control over that. But here's what I do have control over. What I do have control over is beginning to get clear. Here's the internal part of that. What do I want my brand to be? When my name is brought up, what do I want people to think about? Do I want people to think competent, a listener, somebody I can trust who won't go blab behind my back? What are those brand things? And if you get clear about that, here's the hint. The hint is get a piece of paper and just jot down the 4, 5, 6 characteristics that you would like to be your brand.
Hmm.
Now, the part you control is that you can invest. You can invest if you are serious about creating that brand, you can invest in those characteristics. You can say, wow, if trusted is one of the things I want, how many times do I break confidences? How many times have I talked about people in my organization behind their back negatively? And you can control that. That's where the real internal development of brand comes. And the real brand you want is one that comes authentically from who you are inside. But what we're advocating here from an internal perspective is to get deliberate about it.
Mm-hmm.
Get clear and say, what is it that I want people, what is it that I want people to be saying, thinking, feeling, and experiencing around me as a leader? And while they already maybe have their minds made up, you have a possibility of beginning to invest and throw things out there that create the brand that you want.
Yeah. And I think all of these items that we've talked about in these internal victories for a leadership mindset is work we can do. And that's really my question for all that are listening. Do you want to do the work? Are you willing to do the work? If so, this is the work that we believe will really create, develop, strengthen those actions, behaviors, that represent a leadership mindset.
Well, Aarron, I really appreciate you leading this discussion. And one of the things I appreciate most about this discussion is that, forgive my language, but it's not bullshit.
Yeah.
I know it's something that you are genuinely paying attention to in your own life and in your own leadership, and that you are a friend and a colleague and a mentor to me in terms of holding me accountable and wanting the best for me. So I just want to say thank you for leading this conversation. And next time we'll talk about the external.
Yeah.
And we'll go from there.
Yeah, to you as well. And for all that listened in, thank you. Feel free to reach out to us to talk about this in more detail. And look forward to, as John said, our next session where we can focus on these external victories, these strategies, these tools that we might use to complement our leadership mindset. So thank you very much. And thanks, John.
See you next time.